Okay, well, good morning, everybody. We'll wait for the relay up on the screen. There we go. So, really, as Jeff alluded to, and as Laura, who will get a lot of accolades in my presentation today, uh, we do a lot with weather here in Middle Tennessee and actually all over the country through a group called Skywarn. And really, my goal today is to teach you a little bit about how to safely report weather events and be part of the local spotting network. If you have an amateur radio, you can play too. I'll let you guys read this and guess who I am in that cartoon. I'm Julian. And I've been that way for years. There are a few other people I've met in my life who are like that. And they're not all meteorologists. A lot of them are just plain old ham operators. So let's start with the obvious. Are you a weather junkie? Some of us are. Do you follow weather closely? Are you motivated by storms? I can tell you when the radar lights up, my adrenaline rises. And yesterday I popped on after being on 17 meters and found Laura. She was out there beat me to the punch and knew what was going on. Um, and if you operate a ham radio, you too can participate with it. And for some of us, it runs in our blood. For me personally, it started in my youth. I blame my mother in the early days sitting out in the backyard watching storms come in. I actually saw my first funnel cloud with my mom in the backyard of our house. It was pretty interesting. It just gives you a rush. But I had a very primitive weather station. I dug these old pictures out and have my old Heath weather station. That was my big upgrade in 1973. And it's still running. I have it working in my shack. So, weather monitoring has been in my blood a long time. But amateur radio helped fill a void that I couldn't pursue. I actually studied to be a meteorologist for 2 years. And then this thing called calculus and differential equations sort of got in the way, and the math didn't work for me. So I redirected my career path to communications and marketing. But the desire was always there. It never left my blood. So when I earned my ham license, within 2 years, I was plugged into Skywarn. I just found them out in DeKalb, Illinois, and one observer caught us doing our Skywarn thing one time on a scanner and reported us into the local media and got coverage. So I really have enjoyed this quite a bit. But some of us also back into it. I mean, if we get active in amateur radio and you hear Skywarn happening on the local repeater here or in other counties, all of a sudden, if you have some background, you can get globbed into things real quick. And I have. And I've been trying to be actively involved with severe weather spotting since my youth. And I took weather training courses. I know Laura's taking weather training courses, both through the National Weather Service and other organizations that help you polish your skills. And you learn a lot about proper, safe observing and reporting things. So what I want to do today is help you understand what does it take to be a good observer? How do you need to be weather aware? Terminology gets thrown around a lot. Being weather aware, it means a few things. I want to show you how to stay ahead of the storm, be involved and be ready when they arrive if you want to participate. Some of the typical weather spotting equipment that you have, how to operate a safe indoor radio station when you're spotting. And I'll give an example on my shack on how I do that. And knowing what and how to report, because that's really important too. How do you see it? How do you measure it? And then I've got a whole bunch of resources for training and participating in this that Laura has been so kind to share with me that we can give you all kinds of links. So once the presentation's posted, you'll have all the links, everything we show today on how to partake. So how do you be a good weather observer? First of all, stay on top of weather trends. So trends are longer term trends. We always get notice of what's coming in the media. They'll be on there at 5 o'clock news going, hey, maybe tomorrow things will get dicey. But in addition to the local media, you have the National Weather Service radio, you have them online, and you also have a lot of specialty services some of you may use that are on your phone or your pad, like weather.com or Weather Underground or the Weather Channel. But you also have your eyes. That's why I show you these couple of pictures here, because the clouds in the sky can tell you a lot. And I can tell you if later on you want to stop by, it's going to be a little hard to see. But if you're a real junkie, you can read the clouds and it'll tell you what's coming. You don't just have to rely on the TV. You just look up in the sky and go, oh, that's interesting. Something's coming. And it'll give you 24 to 48 hours notice too. But what is being weather aware? It's paying attention to early forecast information. You know, advanced severe weather information is available from the National Weather Service. It's out there for the taking. And sometimes the impacted day that's coming could be 5 to 7 days out. And you'll know in advance if you just check certain sites. Most times it's 4 days, but sometimes when you see that they've noted a 5th or 6th day, it's going to be a major event. And so you have that much lead time to be aware of what's coming. And the local media tends to jump on it too. You know, they will tell you, you know, a couple of days in advance that, hey, we might have some severe weather on Thursday, pay attention. And refinements to that forecast happen multiple times during the day. So I want to show you a website that maybe you've been to, maybe you haven't, but the National Weather Service at weather.gov, that's your landing page when you show up there. And in the upper left, you'll see the second button over is called Forecast. You drop down, and there's a button called Severe Weather. This is where you can go see what's coming or what they anticipate is coming. If you go to that page, you'll land here, which is, you know, in this particular instance, there's a slight risk of thunderstorms for Saturday, 12/16 for part of the country. And on the lower bottom, it's a little bit of an eye chart, but you'll see a line called severe. As you go along, you'll see each day of the week. And like for this example I shot in December, there's no severe on Friday, but on Saturday, there's a slight risk. And there'll be a chart to the right that also talks about it and where that is. But if you click on the little button Saturday and slight, you'll get another chart. And it'll tell you which areas are the categories of the different severity levels. So in this case, it was just along the Gulf Coast for marginal thunderstorms, slight risk of regular thunderstorms, marginal risk in Florida, slight risk in southern Florida. But the idea here is to show you that you too can know in advance the general areas that may be affected by severe weather. Also, there's a lot of outreach information through the Storm Prediction Center. And if you take a look on that same bar going across, you'll see outreach. And if you drop down in there, there'll be a whole bunch of topics. But for example, you want to learn about tornadoes? There's some there. Severe weather safety, pick your topic. There's plenty on this page. And then farther down in the bottom, and I'll blow that chart up later because that's an important one for you to know about, is this Do You Know section. And they have 5 screens in there that rotate around that you can get more information on severe weather. So remember the Severe Storm Forecast Center, and you'll hear this talked about on a lot of the weather nets are on MTUs. So what are these outlook categories? That's that little chart I was showing you before. This is important. They talk about it on TV, but it also lets you know the details because the meteorologists tend to read this almost verbatim when they talk to you about it. You'll hear, oh, it's a level 1 or it's a level 2 kind of day. Or it could be a level 4. Hey, everybody, you better be on your A game and know where your safe space is at, right? So the important thing is understand as an observer and as a spotter that there are different risk levels, and these risk levels mean something. That you could have on a slight risk day, which we didn't have any of this yesterday. We were in general thunderstorm categories, but you could have, like in slight, isolated or scattered severe storms are expected. You'll hear that terminology. Well, what does it mean? Well, over to the right, you know, there's a percentage of chance that you will have a few of these storms in a year, and a severe storm contains these things. So one of the things I want to arm you with later on in this presentation are how to report these things when you see them. But understanding what's coming is so important. So want to get plugged in? This is the place to go and start with the National Weather Service severe storm forecast site. Another great area, and I thank Ron Howells for giving me access to this one, is get plugged into the weather model. You don't have to wait for the TV meteorologist to show you, well, here are the trends. Guess what? You too can find this online for free. And it's really great. It's called tropicaltidbits.com. This is an access that we have that you can look at some of the same models, not all of them, that the meteorologists on TV have or the Weather Service has. And this tropicaltidbits.com can run out almost 2 weeks on the GFF plug. So for example, you go into their website, the US model that does a lot of the forecast the National Weather Service has, but you'll also hear the term European model. That would be under global, it's called ECM. But what's interesting is you can run the model yourself. They update these at different times of the day. In the case of GFS, it's every 6 hours. And you'll run through, here's who's going to get snow and whatever. And it'll go out 2 weeks, but the error factor goes up. And you'll always hear that. Like yesterday, they were talking originally, we were supposed to get some snow. Well, that all went down in the toilet because it was 2 days beforehand. You start to see that the front's going to weaken as it comes through, and we didn't get as much moisture. And the cold didn't penetrate the moisture, so we didn't get it. But this thing will at least run through the model, and you can take a look out a week and a week and a half ahead and see, what are the general trends? And why do you think we might get some severe weather? You can actually see this in the model forecast by the deepening the lows, et cetera. And it's a great one online. The global one, like I said, you see ECMWF, that's the global forecast. It doesn't typically run out as far as the GFS model, but it's another one to weigh the alternatives and see the differences between them. Next, be ready before the storms show up. Storm fronts give you 24 hours notice. You can see it in the clouds. You can feel it in the barometer dropping. There's a lot of things that you can notice as a ham operator, but have your ham station ready to go within that 24-hour period of when things are going to get to the weather department. And are you safe operating in case of lightning? I mean, it's sort of hard to transmit when you don't have an antenna. And so important is, if you have your HT, you have an indoor antenna, but be ready. Here's my weather shack. I have 2 different shacks. I'm spoiled in my house. When I moved out of Franklin, I was able to subdivide. And what's neat is my inside shack and my bonus room is strictly for the weather center. This is where I check into WCARES nets and stuff like that most times, unless we're doing like we're going to be doing on Monday. Then I want the big antenna so I can hear you guys on Simplex. But you can see here I have a Davis weather station on the left. I have my M-Tier Slack link on my primary PC. My radio's at ICOM 2730, nothing fancy. But a few years ago, Laura was kind enough to rig up that Gibson Ridge presentation, and I bought right into that. Having access to this radar has been super slick, and I love it. But I also run Radar Scope, which I'll show you the different platforms here in a minute. So I'm looking at 2 different radar pictures when I'm operating, and then of course I need that IEM bot running on the second PC so I can stay and tap to the Weather Service releases. And from there, I can monitor, participate, and I also have windows to look out, and it allows me to be on a second story, so I have a really good view until I have to take cover. Inside, it's all about indoor antennas. So when you check in with a rubber duck, you sound like you're on a rubber duck, and you break up and you don't have a lot of power because you're looking at that, or even an extender whip is it's okay, but you're going to be really noisy into the repeater if you're going to try to check in. So I use a little 5-element beam. My wife is most patient with me. It's behind the couch in the bonus room, so she doesn't care. But it's pointed at M-Tiers and the 2-1 machine. And I also use a diamond omnidirectional in case I have to change to a different repeater. Even though I'm here with WCARES, I also am involved with Rutherford County ARES, and from there I can hit our backup repeater as well. And I keep a coax switch behind the radio for quick options. Oh, the other thing, I'll get to that. When I lived in Franklin, that was my antenna farm in the attic. Everything under the roof is pretty safe. So, yes. Oh, I have a little piece of metal. That's a great question. I have. So the question was, my mag mount, I'll go back one, is just on the wood floor in the corner. I have, like others do, aluminum lined attic in this house, in this building. So in that corner is clear because there's no aluminum sheathing around there. It's where the brick is at. But when I really want to make it count, and it doesn't matter for my access to getting to the Rutherford County local repeater in Murfreesboro, I can have it on I have a little piece of metal that I set it on to just get a little better ground plane. But that's a great point. If you can put a ground plane in, do that. But I also have management at home that doesn't want that on the floor full time.
Like 88 cent pizza pan.
88-cent pizza pan could work from Walmart too. Yes, absolutely. But, you know, if you've got space in your attic, and my attic in Franklin was not lined, I had all kinds of verticals and beams and stuff I could move around. But backup power, backup power, backup power. I know Laura runs a backup battery and a second backup battery. I do too. I have a piano 20 amp hour, two of them. One is on, both are on voltage monitors. The one on the left is on a paradigm switch, which allows me to, it just hot swaps like that. When the power drops, boom, I'm right on the battery. And then if I need the backup battery, I have that, and then the PC they're running. But, you know, I have the HTs handy, and they're always charged in case I need to run around the house and monitor. So those are great. And a generator too. So I'm fully ready for it if something worse happens, that we lose the power. And then observing, real important. You know, do you have the tools to do it properly? My Davis weather station, I'm blessed that this QTH, I have it up on the tower at 30 feet, which the Weather Service sort of likes it up in the clear at 30 feet. Finally been able to accomplish that, and there's my rain gauge out at the base of the tower. But also, when they talk about measured, and I'm going to show an antique here just for fun, I used to weather spot with this out in the yard. You can do this. And we don't do it in Middle Tennessee, but this is a handheld anemometer, old style, analog. And then another one, whoop, Jeff, I hope you lost the picture. On the center picture is some of the newer ones. Those are like $400 if you want to have those. Yes, sir. So anyways, the whole point is I can go out and take a reading, get out of the car or get out in the yard, and I'll be able to have direction and strength. So it's a way of having measured results to report as opposed to observed. Other techniques too, you know, Davis Weather Station's one brand, there's ambient weather, there's a lot of others. So be aware of, you know, when you want to have measured, get good equipment, be able to measure. Simpler techniques are manual rain gauge, I have one of those too, and my handheld anemometer types. Also on observing, you saw on my desk, radar, radar, radar. It is the best thing since sliced bread being able to have this, because back in the day, we didn't have radar. We did observing with our eyes, and we got calls on the radio, go here, look for that. We don't go out and spot in Middle Tennessee because it's a little dangerous with all our hills. But where I was raised, we were on the flat farmlands of Illinois, and they would send us out, try to find a little outcrop somewhere we could get high and observe during severe storm events. Now we have radar, and you don't have to go anywhere. You have this unless you're needed to report something locally. What I want to stress on the radar is real-time access, but beware of latency. The National Weather Service site, as much as we love them, can be a little slow. So, for example, I bought the Gibson Ridge. It's a wonderful tool. It's extremely powerful. It has things I don't know about that I still have to learn about some of the aspects of it, but it's a really cool tool. And when that gentleman did the presentation, I was on next day. I want that. It is so cool. It allows you to slice and dice storms, etc. But it's also very real time. It is close. You are watching the stream as it's happening, as opposed to the Weather Service radar is retransmitted out and then it goes out on their system. I have seen the Weather Service radar lag as much as 5 to 10 minutes. So when you're in the life-threatening events, you don't want to be 10 minutes behind because the tornado could be right on top of you. And I had a close call last year at my new house. I was running our Rutherford County net, and I had to back off to the backup person and go take cover in my safe place because the funnel cloud was going to be within the mile. So it was like, yeah, I think we're going to check out for a little while. I'll be back in 15. And I just watched the radar. When it cleared, I was back on the air. Another one, less expensive, Ron Howes exposed me to this one. It's called Radar Scope. Some of you may have it. There's 2 levels. I just bought the basic. It's $9.99, and I've had a lifetime with it since then. But what's cool, it's on all apps. It's everywhere. I have it on my phone. I have it on my pad. You can take it with you, and it's really good. But your level 1 is they give you a composite radar view. You can't slice it and dice it. You can't play with it. But do you really need to do that? and I'll show you some of the close-ups of what it looks like. And then, of course, you can always go to the National Weather Service radar system too, and they'll show you what's happening close to real time. Well, we get active around here. So I took some screenshots during some severe storm outbreaks here, so you can get a flavor of what some of them look like. This is the Reedyville tornado. I was up and awake for that one in the early morning because it was dicey near us. My QTH is that little mark up there on the top. I don't think there's a pointer here, but you can see where the severe storm was at. There was rotation, and we all know what happened in Reedyville, but that was within, I would say, about 8-9 miles of the house. But I was awake for that, and it went through, Rutherford County. Then we had our big Nashville tornado breakout just this last December. So, that was during the day. We were able to capture a lot of different screens on both radar scope and for the and the Gibson Ridge. So I'm going to show you a couple things that the radar reveals when you have these feeds at home. And I think it allows us as observers to know, I can see the track. The computer actually estimates the approximate course. And you can see the little tornado icon. It's real small, but in the red box there's 3 tornado warnings going on at the same time. As you can see there were 3 different cells they were tracking that day. And you could see the paths of the storm and what they're projecting the path to be. So as the time developed here, and this one's at 3:51 in the afternoon, this shot is on radar scope. I switched to the Gibson Ridge, and same idea. You can see the approaches happening and all of the directions that those particular storm cells are taking. In a future presentation, we'll be talking about tornadoes more and the way they occur more in Middle Tennessee than elsewhere in the country. But you can see they had 3 different cells going on simultaneously with tornadic activity that day. And this is long before it came into in our area. This is when it was hitting Clarksville, et cetera. As the time progressed, and this is at 1:55 in the afternoon, you can see here how the storms are moving and shifting. And the neat thing about the Gibson Ridge is that you can call up boxes and get description on the cell itself, what's happening. And the TVS is, the tornado vector signature, and those are there. It's present, and the computer is detecting it. And then, boom, you have information on how high, depth, and a lot of the storms, it'll tell you what size of hail that they're indicating on the radar. So you can get 1.5 inches or, what's falling in that particular cloud. So there's a lot of nice detail there. The scary thing, though, is this. As the afternoon went on, this is at 2:34, you can see how the tracks were solidifying going to the east. And they shift a little bit as the storm moves, but you can actually see the path of the one that went up into Gallatin and north of Nashville. It's there, and we know it probably about, Laura, I'd say a half hour before it hit. We already know the path or approximate path of where that storm's going to go. So as a spotter, that helps us know, are we safe where we're at? And number 2 is, can we help observe when the time comes? But once again, super powerful stuff to have at home in your pocket. And then there's other cool things you can observe too, and you see reports of these. Sometimes they're on the M-tier system. This is an outflow boundary I captured coming in, and this was in the morning, and I saw that cloud deck coming right out through the windows. I'm going, oh, that looks cool. What's this? And so I go out, start taking pictures, and then pop up the radar here in a minute, but you can see the shelf cloud as it's approaching. Really impressive. It's like, wow, what started this? Well, that was on the radar, on radar scope, you can actually see the moisture in the shelf cloud as it's rolling toward you. It's not a thunderstorm, it's an outflow boundary. It's associated with the thunderstorms behind it, but there isn't a thunderstorm in it. It's threatening looking, a lot of wind, but there's not anything super dangerous in necessarily an outflow boundary other than, boy, things are going to go flying around because the winds could be 30 to 40 miles an hour out of it because it's outflowing from those thunderstorms behind it. But it's neat stuff to associate what you're looking at with what's on the radar. That's Laura.
That shelf cloud is what a lot of people will call it as a wall cloud. That does not rotate. That is outflow, as Paul said. Just think of when the storm is going out. The wall cloud is underneath the main body of the storm. So if you see something on the edge of the storm that looks like a pancake, you're looking at a shelf cloud. Wall cloud is inflow, it's going everything with the wind is going right up against the storm, and the shelf cloud, as Paul said, is all out.
Yeah, so to repeat it for those online, I don't know if I can do it justice after your excellent explanation. A shelf cloud is not a wall cloud, and a wall cloud is associated with an individual thunderstorm of which you have rotation going on underneath and you have flow going up and flow going down. And that's where the tornado forms, is out of a wall cloud. The shelf cloud is not a wall cloud because it's not associated with directly with a thunderstorm. It's an outflow boundary push of wind. And we're going to have a special session here in May, a little bit more on tornadoes, but just be aware that, you know, you can see these things. And so when you see it on radar, you go, wow, it is not tied to the thunderstorm whatsoever. And some observing caveats. You know, if you're going to be an observer, it's all about know what you got to do. Number one, safety, safety, safety. Your safety is of the utmost importance. You and your family. Don't run outside and take pictures if you know it's not going to be safe. You know, debris flying at you, et cetera. You see people out there, there's the tornado going by and they're out there, yeah, I got to get a picture of this. You know, something's going to hit them in the head. Don't do it. And then family first. Do not venture out and leave your family at risk. When I was a weather spotter and I was sent out through our ARES group, when I was living in Illinois, I wasn't married, so I could go do that stuff. We just did it. Didn't think twice about it. You know, once you have married and you're married and you have kids, then it's a different situation. Don't leave your family at risk. Don't put yourself at risk. And identify your safe place. They talk about it on TV all the time. Talk about your safe place. What is the safest place in your home, and can you get there quickly along with your family member? And do you have emergency equipment there? Call me a geek. I have 2 hard hats in the bathroom. That's our safe place. It's under the sink in there. They tell you to cover your head. You have flashlights. You have your emergency radios down there. See the FEMA guidelines. The FEMA site has a lot of what do you need in your safe place. But if you know you have a storm come through and you see these people come out afterwards, and those that were well protected, they're fine. So make sure you know what you need to do in case of an emergency like that. So let's talk about storm reporting, because this is one of my bugaboos, and I know anybody who's run a WeatherNet knows these things. The reason we help in a public service mode with the National Weather Service is we're the ground truth. We're eyes on the ground because the radar doesn't show everything. Ground truth is so important. And there's a couple of key points here. Number one is we're trusted observers from the Weather Service. If you've been trained, they think and assume you know what you're looking for. So a lot of folks who will check in, they'll say, you'll hear the word trained. That usually means they've been through courses for this. And we have MTIRs. I'll go into that in a minute. We also have our Skywarn local groups in each county that are participating in that across the state and elsewhere in the nation. If I happen to be traveling, I'll check in somewhere else. You know, be a weather junkie, but don't tie up the airwaves with unnecessary or wrong information during a severe weather event. Time is of the essence when the net controls are looking for reports. So I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute. They don't want to hear, it's raining here. We already see that. It's on the radar. We know it's raining there. It's raining cats and dogs. No, we don't want any of that. We're after reportable criteria, and we'll show you what that criteria is. I'll plug MTIRs for a moment, and Laura was kind enough to give me her presentation. She did a number of years ago. It may be a little dated, but it's from a relevance standpoint, it's really good. It covers all the basics of the MTIR system across Tennessee. So if you're out in Sevierville and the weather hits and you want to check in and help, you can do that. MTIRs runs across the state, and a lot of these counties have local Skywarn available there as well when they're activated. The important caveat is, if you're in a county like Williamson and the Skywarn net is going on the Brentwood repeater, you don't need to check in MTIRs. You can listen, but the reports go through your local county location. They don't go directly to M tiers unless you're in a county like there's nothing happening in Cannon County. Well, then check in M tiers, give you a report. But in the case of most of the populated counties, they already have a Skywarn net running. That gets relayed through the net there because they have the feeder system in the M tiers, which then goes to the National Weather Service as trusted observers. Another term you'll hear is what's measured versus observed. What are the local groups looking for? What are the Skywarn teams seeking? Well, there's a lot of data they're looking to capture, but there's two key terms: measured and observed. Measured is instrument-based, observed is with your eyes. So we'll follow the Skywarn reporting guidelines. I'll show you some of those. But listen to what your local Skywarn net control is asking for, because it's going to change. For example, the National Weather Service has the radar. They can see. But the farther out the radar is, the less they can see at the ground level. Okay, so if you're down in Lawrenceburg, they can't see ground level. They're up a couple thousand feet. So they're looking for validation. And it could be the same thing here where hills are blocking the radar. They want to know, well, there's a cell over this point. Are you guys seeing X, Y, and Z? So the net controls will get that information and start looking for hail of a certain size, or they're looking for verification of a wind velocity, et cetera. So listen to what the net control is asking for, because it isn't always what's on the national chart of what they're looking for. I mean, there's a standards that we all follow in Skywarn, but sometimes the local weather office is looking for something different because they see something in the clouds and say, or on the radar and say, can you guys, what do you observe? Do you have ground damage from this point? We're looking for those kind of reports. So listen, but as great as the Doppler systems are, and they can see the rain, we know it's raining. They're looking for other information. And I'll go into that in a minute too. But just be aware, radar can't see everything, but it's really good. So what should you report? This will be in the presentation that we'll post on the website, but this is the information they look for, whether it's severe weather, flooding and rainfall, winter weather. They want to know a couple of key things. In the case of a spotter ID, you're using your call, but where are you at? I'm at the intersection of X and Y. And if you don't give that to the net control, they will ask you for it. Well, where are you at? What time did you see it? What did you observe? But don't go into any lengthy speech. They're after quick pieces of information. So here's how you should report. Be brief, because the storm could take down communication. It could knock out where the repeater site is. So if you're online and you're on the air, get it in quick. What have you seen? Where you saw it? When you saw it? What was it doing? And identify yourself and your location. If you can remember those couple of things, that will help speedily report the information in. And then there's all kinds of weather events, right? So your criteria will vary, but the National Weather Service wants to know certain things. If it's a tornado, report it in. Hey, we have one on the ground, or we've seen it, or I see it right there. Give the information to net control and then call 911 too. If you can get into the cell phone, dial it in. Local authorities need to know too, because remember, when you report it through the Skywarn system, it's being relayed to the National Weather Service. And it gets there pretty quick, Lord. Doesn't it? I mean, when you think about the timing, it's a minute or two, but every minute counts when those storms are blowing and going. Call 911 too. Same thing on storm damage. But this chart really makes it pretty straightforward. If they want to see wind gusts of 50 miles an hour or higher, you can observe it, but it's better measured. If you can measure it, hey, great. And storm damage, always report. These are the criteria they're looking for, and hail sizes of certain sizes. This is some commonly used terminology for hail sizes, from pea to softball. You'll hear those terms thrown around in the news sometimes when they're covering damage. Like you always see what you see in Oklahoma City. I mean, they just seem to be gifted out there for the softball size hail in Texas. But that's the actual measurement that they're reporting. So if you use the term, I have $50 hail, that's huge hail. It's going to cause some serious damage. But those are the terminologies that you want to use when you're reporting. But sometimes you don't have a measured device with you. All of us aren't carrying around anemometers on hand. So if you have to visually report, these are the categories and descriptions of what you're seeing happening around you. So if your trees are bending, limbs are breaking, things are flying, old weak structures are sustaining damage, you've seen roof tiles flying off, it's probably in the 45 to 57 mile an hour range. And you would report it as observed, not measured. Once again, criteria here that you can have in the back of your handbook. What if you're mobile? Oh boy. I mean, most of everybody that wants to report should be at home, safety first. But if you happen to be out in the car, you know, protect your family first. Take cover, get them into a shelter. If you can't, and you're going to report it in, use the same criteria as you would at home. It's much harder to judge weather events when you're driving. You got a lot going on. You're supposed to be paying attention to the road. Windshield wipers are flying like crazy. And you're looking at rain going sideways, etc. It's hard to judge. So heavy rain and strong wind is not a reportable criteria. They're looking for data. Really blowing out here. How do I turn that into something I could measure, right? So you've got to think when you report, what exactly should you be saying that's relevant to the people who need the information? And then the other part is, you know, you can't measure rainfall rates from your car. Forget it. You know, unless you have a, you know, you're driving around with Channel 2's little van that they have, they cruise around with their onboard radar and everything else. You can't measure like they can. So give up. Don't even report rainfall amounts unless you're seeing flooded streets and things. Now you're back on the criteria. But heavy rain in your car does not give them a good measure. And follow net control guidelines. You know, some possible criteria I've listed there, you know, down trees, power line, block roads, they want to know that stuff. You know, local flooding, don't turn around, don't drown, the old adage. And once again, 911 needs to know too that, hey, this underpass is flooded, or, you know, this road is impassable at the moment, et cetera. So once again, your criteria is a little bit more limited mobile, but you can still help out. You know, we're blessed here in Middle Tennessee. I can't tell you. I have been in multiple states where I've lived over my career, and we have an awesome network of weather observers, spotters, and coordinators. And I'm going to thank again Laura and 4CLO for doing such a great job here in Middle Tennessee and with WCARES. You know, she plugged me into this group here, and I'm very grateful. And it can be an outlet for your observing. So if you really feel like you want to chip in, this is a great place to do it between your local Skywarn and the MTIR system. It's fantastic. Other areas, they're islands. They are not as coordinated as here. So a bunch of resources. All the links are embedded in the presentation, but you've got National Weather Service training that will be ongoing. They plug it up on the website. So watch there. We have local training through WCARES here, like today, and MTIRS. There's this Nashville situation report that you can get on Laura's mailing list, which is wonderful. She'll pop them out. They're updated twice daily. They have the Weather 101 classes that are held. The dates weren't published yet that I saw. The former spotter training is weather safety basics now is going to be the terminology. And of course, as you heard earlier, Severe Weather Day, Awareness Day at Trevecca University next week. Laura, plug.
Now up on the OHX website, your web week is the 20th, which is next week. 20th is with the online industry weather training class, OHX.com. That's the
all right, so for those online, Laura was talking about the weather basics, weather OHX, Weather 101, second bullet. The training starts this week because the Severe Weather Awareness Week is kicking off with Trevecca as the end of it all this week, which is great. And if you can make it in person, I've got to stress again, I've been to several of those. Stay for the afternoon session. That's the Weather Junkie time. You can really get into some of the information, and I'll bet you they do a big blowout on December's tornadoes after that. That's a whole presentation on it. That's the first time I've ever seen that type of alert before, for me, anyways, personally. I don't know if they've had that before in Middle Tennessee like that, probably back years ago when the other one hit 2011. Yeah, okay. So if you can make Trevecca, it's a great time. The IEM bot monitor, it's that's a great tool too. You've got to be involved with Twitter to get some of this stuff, but that's another resource. And you've got to look up your specific weather service office. But the neat thing is, if you're traveling, you can look up other offices if you're caught out of state and there's severe weather happening there. So you can look up and be plugged in there. And then of course they have it on the X site, and it covers Williamson and Davidson only. But this is Williamson. And another one here is, I showed you the Storm Prediction Center. Stay weather aware, stay plugged in, get involved. And then Chrissy Hurley, who's our lead meteorologist for severe weather here in Nashville, she has a nice presentation there on YouTube on severe weather, which would be a great tool for you if you're not familiar with it. And then there's a whole bunch of online programs. There's stuff you can really go to town. We are planning a future weather presentation, if I can give it a plug, Hoop. Our own retired meteorologist from Channel 5, Ron Howes, will be here in May to talk about tornadoes in depth. So we're looking forward to that, and other spotting techniques we'll have at future meetings. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak here today. Thank you again to Laura for her help. N1 EMP Doug Lowe and Rutherford County helped me with some of the materials today, as well as two of my friends that are my proofers and readers. And I appreciate Gibson Ridge, Radar Scope, and NOAA for letting me take some of their images offline. Okay, that was a whole lot. Any questions? Are there any questions from the audience online, on Zoom? I gave you guys a lot of information. I also have some show and tell items up here if you want to look at them later. You want to get involved with clouds or spotting. There's a lot of antique handouts here that I've collected over the years on storm spotting that you're welcome to look at. But yes, question.
We use the Gibson Ridge product at work provided to us. The thing I've noticed though is the refresh rate, the update rate. Is that fixed, or can you?
Yeah, that's for the online folks.
The question is regarding the Gibson Ridge product. We use it at work.
Mhm.
I've noticed and it's great, having it on my laptop at home during severe weather. But I've noticed the update rate where you'll get an update and then it'll say next update in 5 minutes or 4 minutes or something like that. Is that a fixed rate, or can you update it in the registry?
You can't change it. The Weather Service changes the radar rate.
Okay, so that's whatever they're doing.
That's whatever they're doing. If they want faster data, I think it can compress down in the 2 minute range, doesn't it, Laura, if they speed it up? I've seen it like 2:15 in severe weather when I've been watching it. And then when it's not as urgent and is farther away from us, let's say it's in the Memphis area, you'll see the scan rate in the 4.5 minute, as much as 5. There is also a refresh button in there where it says, oh, I didn't get it that fast. Hang on, I'm going to take 40 seconds to get to the next view, and it'll try to catch up. So some of that is the feed, but the actual rotation speed of the radar is all controlled by the National Weather Service.
The follow-up question about location. When you're reporting your location using lat-long data, do they want degrees, minutes, and seconds, or just degrees and minutes, or how
they want street corners and intersections, something on a map they can reference.
Okay, so they don't necessarily.
I don't think, Laura, I don't think I've heard anybody ever ask for latitude and longitude, because that's crazy detail.
Right.
Their latitude and longitude is absolutely correct.
For what?
Sweden, yeah. So once again, it's plus or minus, as Laura mentioned, and the accuracy. What they'd rather have is, what's your nearest intersection? What county am I in? What town am I in? What city am I in? And I'm at the corner of, Park and Vine or something.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Other questions? I thought I saw another hand in here. Nope. Well,
I have
thank
a
you very
question.
much, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Question.
Oh, Jeff has.
On the track that shows the path of the cell, the hash marks, are they at a fixed interval? Is there a legend that identifies what that is?
I haven't determined what that is other than it's a path. I don't think that was a fixed distance on the radar that I'm aware of, Laura. You know, the crosshatch on the track. I don't know if that's, I haven't determined if it's relevant to those of us that are viewing it. It's something maybe Gibson Ridge can answer for us or something. I don't know the answer to that. I would assume it might be some kind of distance measure, distance or time, but it's all based on you got to remember, storms travel at different rates. So sometimes they're doing 40 miles an hour. The ones we had in December were flying along at 60 miles an hour. So very dependent.
On radar scope, those segments are 15-minute segments.
Those are 15-minute segments. There's your answer, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Great.
If
Well,
not,
thank you very
let's
much for
thank
having me.
Paul for a great presentation. Thank you, Paul.